And they'll end up with a security override. And they'll be in minimum security. And they'll be living in a townhouse with other offenders on a street where there's no walls and no barbed wire.
Point of order, Chair. Minimum security is not a townhouse in communities. I mean, we could at least stick to the facts here.
Stick to debate, Ms. Damoff. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Well, Chair, I would just say to Ms. Damoff, I'd invite her to go to Pittsburgh Institution just outside of my riding, where the minimum security inmates live in townhouses. They have a shared kitchen. There's a single door handle lock on the door, no alarms on the windows. They wear their jeans and T-shirts on the weekends and walk of their own volition down to the creek and go, or down to the lake and go fishing.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada, learning all about Canadian federal politics, sharing that with you. We've got these committee meetings. They're so exciting, guys. We get to see all the heavy hitters: Rachel Thomas, Larry Brock, Micheal Barrett, Michael Cooper, Stephanie Cousy, Shannon Stubbs, Rick Perkins. There are so many heavy hitters, and the witnesses are always difficult. They never have the right answers. It's super interesting every time. Let's get into it. Let's check out another crazy committee video. Let's check it out.
Mr. Barrett is next. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. With respect to the comments from the Leader of the Opposition with using the Section 33, the notwithstanding clause, I think it's important to note that Section 33 is Section 33 of the Charter. So it's of course legal. It's of course part of the Charter for a reason, and once used, the laws in question are of course constitutional. When we're talking about the rationale for using the notwithstanding clause, look, when you have someone like my colleague Mr. Kirk pointed out, like the Quebec City mosque shooter, who stormed a place of worship, who murdered in cold blood 6 innocent worshippers in a place where they must have felt safe. We have to feel safe when we go to our places of worship, and the violation of that sanctity can't be overstated, and the heinous disregard for the lives of the victims in that terrible event. And I'm not going to use the name of the shooter because they don't deserve the notoriety that they were seeking. What they deserve is to spend the rest of their natural life in maximum security prison. And what we've seen is that's not the reality that that individual is going to have to live with. So what are the other options? Well, they'll go to medium security. And then they'll end up with a security override. And they'll be in minimum security. And they'll be living in a townhouse with other offenders on a street where there's no walls and no barbed wire.
Point of order, Chair. Minimum security is not a townhouse in communities. I mean, we could at least stick to the facts here.
Stick to debate, Ms. Damoff. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Well, Chair, I would just say to Ms. Damoff, I'd invite her to go to Pittsburgh Institution just outside of my riding, where the minimum security inmates live in townhouses. They have a shared kitchen. There's a single door handle lock on the door, no alarms on the windows. They wear their jeans and T-shirts on the weekends and walk of their own volition down to the creek and go, or down to the lake and go fishing. There's no fence to keep them in, and there's a lot more of them than there are guards. And do you know how I know that? I was there 2 weeks ago, and I walked in. There was no fence, and there's no fence and there's nothing to keep them in. And the individuals who are in there, multiple security overrides have been used. They're not minimum security offenders. There's just no room for them. So we've got people who should be serving sentences in more restrictive conditions, but they're living in a townhouse. The pork chops thawing on the counter when I went inside. Opened the fridge, and it was jammed full of food, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. One of the residents of the townhome was sitting watching TV, welcomed me in. And his compatriots were not working for the day. They were sitting on the step, just enjoying the sun on their face. And that's what we can expect when we don't have a framework in place where the most heinous of crimes, like the individual that I referenced before, who perpetrated a heinous crime, ought not to leave maximum security, save for in a pine box. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the use of the notwithstanding clause. And the Leader of the Opposition has been explicit about that. And if anyone missed that, I'm reiterating it right now. That's the type of criminal justice. That's exactly the criminal justice use that is required. And we know that minimum security escapees, people who have been inmates who have been in max and had security overrides down to medium and down to minimum, have just walked off site and perpetrated more heinous offenses, made more victims of the people who live in the communities around there. That's not our expectation. So we had a point of order moved by the former parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Public Safety, former, now in a different parliamentary secretary portfolio, right? And it is a matter of public record that minimum security inmates have been able to walk off. It's also, I have verified it with my own eyes in the last couple of weeks, the conditions that these inmates live in. And I can tell you I was surprised that I live so close, and I know people live in my community who work at this institution, and I had no idea that these were the conditions that exist at our minimum security facilities. To say nothing of what I observed and the poor conditions in our medium security facilities or our assessment facilities or for our maximum security inmates. But the reality for Canadians is that what we expect is going to happen when justice is done isn't necessarily the reality. And we have seen this with I have a list now of examples of escapes that have resulted in more crimes being perpetrated on people in their communities. But that's why it's so important. We have to remember that our rights as Canadians deserve to be protected and respected. And when we have this imbalance that begins to take form, begins to take shape, where the rights of the accused, but also the rights of the convicted, of the guilty, are given higher order than those of their victims and those of innocent Canadians writ large. And I'm frankly not comfortable with that. And while there's a cry that this is some kind of hidden agenda, well, it's not very hidden. The leader of the opposition stood up in front of a room full of police officers and said, we think that there needs to be reform to some criminal justice laws. And then when pressed for more information, so that exactly the type of criminal justice reform that was previously proposed, where we would have consecutive sentencing for individuals who commit heinous crimes, that be restored. And we've seen Section 33 used before, and I won't pronounce on the acceptability of or the appropriateness of those uses, but I will speak to my comfort with this proposal. And I think that this is peak transparency. This is peak transparency to have a leader of the opposition in a minority parliament context tell Canadians, I'm ready for an election today, and also, if you elect me, we will stop putting the rights, the so-called rights of people like the individual I mentioned before, who perpetrated a heinous crime, that he needs to stay in maximum security. Shouldn't get out and shouldn't have the privileges that a medium security situation offers. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with that being the proposal by the leader of the opposition. And so it's imminently it's going to become more important, and it's eminently reasonable for us to pronounce what would we do. And so should the committee make a statement that we recognize the importance of the Charter and that includes Section 33, the notwithstanding clause, to protect the rights of all Canadians, including their right to privacy? I could see us getting there. That's reasonable. I think that that's fair. But what I haven't heard after 9 years of the NDP Liberal government is them seek to repeal Section 33. So if there's this great discomfort with the notwithstanding clause, repeal it. You've been in government. You had a majority. Stacked the Senate with Liberal appointees. Just take it out. But there hasn't been any talk of that. Nor challenge of depends on the province whether or not they want to challenge its use. So this is very important when we consider what kind of country we want to live in. And I'm very comfortable to say that I want to live in a country where people who commit the most heinous offenses stay in maximum security prison for their natural lives. And the beautiful thing about a democracy is for people who don't like that, they have the opportunity to have their say. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing about our democracy. Now, Mr. Kirk spoke very well about the contortions that one has to, bend themselves into to somehow say that everyone who voted for the bill to protect minors from pornography are somehow looking to further a digital ID, a single digital ID. I don't think that that's reasonable, but I don't think that the intention was that for this to be reasonable. It was supposed to be outrageous, but I'm not outraged. I'm happy to speak to it. The digital ID that the Privacy Commissioner talked about when he was here earlier spoke to a single digital ID to access government services. So for those of my colleagues in the Bloc and in the NDP who are considering this motion, it's important to note that there has been no statement by the Conservative Party of Canada to require a digital ID to access content on the internet. That's patently false. So we often hear talk about being serious in our proposals from this committee and making sure that we're being logical and ethical, but that, of course, has never been said. What we've said is that minors shouldn't be victimized by companies who operate sites like the crime scene that is Pornhub. And we've talked in this committee about bullying, about online bullying, about the effects of social media on young people. And young people in schools have often seen revenge porn or the sharing of non-consensual sexual images of themselves being shared online and finding their ways onto these sites like Pornhub. And to say that we want to protect children from these very dark and truly dangerous places on the internet is this is what we've been transparent about what it is that we want to do. And to say that it's nefarious and that it's going to have some other purpose, like a one-size-fits-all digital ID, it's disingenuous. That's what I think that was the intention, was for it to be, again, outrageous and disingenuous. But, again, I'm very comfortable, and that's why I voted for the idea that it would be a requirement to have age verification to access pornographic material online, because it's necessary to protect children. And I can't see where the controversy is with that. There's never been any proposal. I think Mr. Kirk spoke to the number of options that have been discussed in the studying of the legislation. But there's no one serious or credible that said that the sites in question, like Pornhub, would be entrusted with people's personal information. As I said before, it's a crime scene, and what is allowed to go on there is criminal. So protecting children, I think that's reasonable. I think it's important. I think it's more than just a part of my job. It's as a parliamentarian, it's part of my job as a member of society, and so too, I believe it's a part of my job as a member of society to protect people from the types of heinous monsters who seem to find their way into minimum security and then go and commit capital crimes, the worst kinds of crimes like murder after walking off camp. And we're not talking 50 years ago. We're talking in recent years. So it's a question of what kind of place do we want to live? Do we want to live in a place where we have children being exposed to the sharing of non-consensual, sexually exploitive material that victimizes some of their peers and is monetized by monsters like those that run Pornhub? Can we take a step like requiring the use of age verification to limit the exposure, the risk for children? I think that's important. and to try and conflate it into something else because there's maybe a belief that we wouldn't want to talk about it. I'm actually eager to talk about it. I think that there should be more conversations about what's happening to children and what our role is, and if we want to be complicit, because failure to take action when there's options in front of you, that would make one complicit. Like I said before, do I support the idea of making a statement to the House that we recognize as a committee the importance of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, including the notwithstanding clause, or all parts of the Charter to protect the rights of all Canadians, including the right to privacy? Yeah, I think so. And I think I'd move an amendment to that effect, Chair. I'm not going to pull the trigger on that at this moment because I'd like to work on it. But that would be, I think that's where I would go with it. But with respect to the use of the notwithstanding clause, or perhaps, Chair, to add the context of the proposed use of the notwithstanding clause, like to make sure that that the type of monsters that I mentioned before, again, being vague just so as to not glorify the individual or the crime. I don't want to keep saying it because it truly is horrible, and individuals like that who perpetrate crimes like that need to be locked up for the duration of their natural life. So if we want to add the context of what the Leader of the Opposition's comments were, that's an amendment that I would consider, and I'd be interested if colleagues were interested in supporting just what he said. If they wanted to offer a quote, you can offer a quote for me because I've made them in the House and outside the House, specifically with respect to the use of the notwithstanding clause as proposed by the Leader of the Opposition, and also context on the use of age verification to protect children from both pornography, but also the sharing of non-consensual or sexually exploitive materials. I think that the context in those both of those examples would be useful.
Sorry,
Further,
Mr. Barrett,
yeah.
you're gonna have the floor. I'm gonna suspend for 5 minutes because I have to confer with the clerk. So I'm gonna suspend for 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back to you after that if you don't mind.
I'll work
sir.
on it.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. What do you think, gang? Point of order, Mr. Chair. What is going on in these committee meetings? We do get the best of the best. Larry Brock, Garnet Genu, Rick Perkins, Michael Chong, Michael Cooper, Shannon Stubbs, Micheal Barrett, with Stephanie Cousy. The list goes on and on. They're always super interesting. Something else that's super interesting is the live show that we cover. We cover every question period daily broadcast. It's fun. Come join the community. It's a fun chat room if you like that kind of thing. We keep it clean, but we're learning about Canadian federal politics, and we'll continue with that and these series of videos about the committee meetings. So like, subscribe, get notified, share, all that fun stuff. Check out one of the other videos floating around here. We'll catch you next video. Thank you very much for watching this one. Also, check out our live broadcast. It's really fun. Like, subscribe, get notified, and share. All those fun things. We'll catch you next video. Thanks for watching.